Welcome, Chris, to the Biohacker Babes. Thanks for joining us.
Lauren, Renee, so great to connect with you again. I'm excited about our conversation today.
Me too. Me too.
Me too.
We got to meet at, now I'm blanking on which event. Biohackers
Biohacker
World.
World, yes.
There's so many biohacker
Which
events this
one?
year.
Was it
World
Expo, event,
Summit.
glutton?
Yeah. All the events. But yeah, I got to host a really cool panel there, and you were on my panel, and I just instantly connected to you. You are just, a wealth of knowledge in this space and so much fun to chat with. So excited to bring you to our audience today. And especially because we're going to be talking about something potentially new for our audience. We always love bringing new things. So there is a very fascinating ingredient that won a Nobel Prize that you came across many, many moons ago. And I think I heard you say it was in the longest longevity experiment in mammals ever. So you're going to have to tell us about that. So let's jump in. We're talking about Carbon60 or ESS60. And I would love for you to explain, are those interchangeable, those names? But what is it?
So we can go all the way back to the beginning. So in 1985, here in Houston at Rice University, and we're based in Houston, three scientists discovered the third form of carbon. So if you're watching, I'm holding up a molecule. If you're listening, think of a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms, again, discovered in 1985 here in Houston. And the three scientists who discovered it won the Nobel Prize for that discovery. This molecule is absolutely amazing. I describe it as being performing as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And all of those are things that you don't think of when you think about a health supplement. Most people aren't going, see that battery over there?
Yeah.
I wonder what components of that I should be taking, every 2 hours or whatever. And then the story gets a little more bizarre because that study you mentioned was originally supposed to be a toxicity study. There's the shape on the exterior of this soccer ball shaped molecule are reminiscent of benzene, right? We don't have modern society without benzene. If you just glance around you and imagine all the plastics immediately gone, basically everything falls to the ground, right? And then, so we don't have modern society without benzene. Also responsible for a lot of medicines, a lot of detergents. But benzene on its own is known to be toxic and known to be a carcinogen. And because that shape exists on the exterior of this molecule, we call it ESS60, they thought it would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study. My lab actually provided the material. My lab's mentioned in the peer-reviewed publication. And instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to, in this case, it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So that's the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals, peer-reviewed published research. And then that's kind of what changed my business partner and I from being happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists to getting into the health space, a space I never thought I would be in. I've always felt that when you accumulate information, and you guys are clearly sit in this camp, that you should share it, right? And there's two reasons. One, it's you really cement the knowledge in your own mind when you share it. And the other reason is I just like accumulating information. So like interviewing people like you, like I did. So accumulate the information for yourself, and then you really cement it. It's all selfish, actually. you really cement it in when you're teaching something. So I wrote a book, Live Longer and Better. It's the story of the ESS60 molecule and then my journey kind of into the longevity space. And I ultimately did a longevity summit where I interviewed 55 experts in longevity. And so that's the long and short of why I'm here, I guess.
Fascinating journey.
Yeah. So is ESS the proprietary version? Is it synonymous with carbon?
Yeah. So what we realized really quickly, we can go back to, we started our company and I started manufacturing this molecule in 1991. So anybody out there who has heard of C60, I can very confidently say they have heard of it because of me. I've been manufacturing, and my business partner have been manufacturing it since 1991. As I mentioned, we provided the material in the original study. Our lab is mentioned in that original study. And that publication came out in mid 2012. Mid 2013, we actually started getting phone calls of people like, hey, how much of this should I be consuming? And you have to imagine we're, again, happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists. We got our science hat on, and we're like, wait a minute, you're asking us how much of this molecule that we sell to research institutions around the world to put into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, how much of that should you consume? Kind of the same as the battery story. We thought zero, right? We actually added not for human consumption to our labeling in mid 2013. So think about 1991, start manufacturing, no labeling until 2013. We didn't have to have the labeling because nobody was thinking about consuming it. And so my business partner and I, we were getting 1 to 2 phone calls a week of people, hey, you know, how much should I take? They were actually giving fantastic testimonials about knee pain being gone, kind of hair growing quicker and original color. And we're like, wait a minute, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. And they're like, yeah. If I were a 275-pound rat, how much should I be taking? Right?
Living in a house, going to work. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my business partner and I, we'd get together quarterly, like, do we want to get into this? Is this where we want to be? We really, the supplement market is so very different. And we'll just start there, right? Different from delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials. When I deliver this black carbon powder to a researcher, they give it to a grad student or a research associate, they take it and they throw it in an HPLC and they confirm that we shipped to them what we sold them. That is not how the supplement industry works, right? We didn't really get into the industry until kind of the latter part of 2017. During that time, we're meeting quarterly. In the middle of that, I actually found a peer-reviewed published article where the researchers stated that they purchased a bunch of supplements off the market, and 50% of the supplements that they had purchased did not have in them what they said they had in them, right? And this was another reason this is not an industry we want to get in. Latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following starts talking about all the benefits he's getting, taking it on a daily basis. And our phone went from 2 calls a week to 10 calls a day, right? And now we're starting looking at this, and we actually found there was somebody who was purchasing our C60, and we consider that for industrial applications, putting it a lesser grade and selling it in oil. And we reached out to them and said, like, you're not buying the right grade. That grade still has solvents in it. And they were like, well, we're not going to pay for the more expensive one. And we're like, well, we're not going to sell you, right? So we quickly had this understanding that the industry was going to go in the direction that supplements tend to go to, unfortunately. And so we're like, okay, let's get into the market so we can provide a high quality product. And let's trademark ESS60. And so it stands for elemental safe spheres. And then there's 60 atoms in the molecule. And so it really is our attempt to help keep the public safe. If I'm going to talk to somebody new about a health supplement, I mean, we literally purchased 22 of the products on the market from different brands, and only one of them had in it what they said. The rest of them I describe as woefully low. So that's what the ESS60 is. And the fundamental way we describe it is C60 is for industrial applications, and there is peer-reviewed published research that proves that if it's improperly processed, it's harmful. ESS60 is C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption.
Okay. Super clear. I will never forget that.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. So, okay. So human grade, safe, clean, basically it's an antioxidant, right? And I think it's like 100 times or 1,000,000 times more powerful and perhaps doesn't disrupt the redox pathway, which I'm curious about. But where do we find this in nature? I guess is what I want to know.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And one of the first questions, especially when people learn that we manufacture it in a reactor, like, is this naturally occurring? And the answer is yes. If you collect the soot from a candle, right? And so you usually do that by putting a cold steel plate over a candle, you get this black powder. That black powder has parts per million, parts per billion of the ESS60 molecule in it. Not enough to actually be used in anything. So then the next thing is we're making it in a reactor. It's actually incredibly challenging to make. It's part of the reason the product is expensive. It's part of the reason, I described it as being great at inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, but we don't have Bucky ink, Bucky batteries, which would be amazing, right? Bucky batteries, Bucky photocells, because it's so expensive. And the reasons that it is expensive is the best way to make it is to take 2 graphite rods and vaporize them in an inner environment. It turns out that graphite is one of the hardest materials on the planet to vaporize. And so you actually have local temperatures of the sun to vaporize this graphite. It also needs to be done at a reduced atmosphere, so a vacuum chamber, and absence of oxygen. Oxygen will kill the reaction. And so you have all of these components, and then they have to be moving. And actually, my business partner and I, back in 1991, designed and built the best technique for manufacturing this molecule, still the best today. Like, it's the best way to manufacture it, the most efficient way. So it's expensive to manufacture. It is naturally occurring. Now, when you manufacture it, you have this kind of concept of bioidentical hormone replacement, right? But is it really bioidentical? Like, in chemistry, in organic chemistry, you can have a right-hand molecule and a left-hand molecule. They can have the exact same chemical equation, but they can react differently in your body just because of the polarity. This molecule is very simple. There's only 60 atoms, right? And so I'm holding up that soccer ball shaped. There's only 60 atoms, and they can only go together one way. So whether you get it from a reactor, whether you get it from the soot of a candle, whether you get it from space, that's really how they ended up discovering the molecule. There's large amounts in space. The KT boundary, which is the Earth layer, when the asteroid struck the planet, killed all the dinosaurs, that layer has an increased amount of carbon-60, kind of industrial carbon-60. Wherever you get it, it's exactly the same.
Space nutrients. Love it.
Space nutrients. Yeah.
Space nutrients.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Some people have called it the perfect carbon, right? So we know that we're carbon beings and we have this perfect carbon. And maybe we can get into, my role changed immediately when this study, evolved immediately starting when the study came out. So first is a 90% extension of life. I wasn't in this space. So I'm like, is that a big deal? I literally, I just don't know. I've never been into a GNC and them have any sort of supplement that says a 20% extension of life. So your intuition is it's really good, but then you start digging in, and the next best way to live longer is calorie restriction, right? It's well documented. If you reduce your calorie consumption by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. There really aren't many people who are interested in the starve yourself. Maybe they need a new marketing pitch or something.
I don't want to live longer for that.
No, and that's complicated because we can't restrict all the time. It will backfire at some point, but I understand the science behind it.
Well, I think David Sinclair kind of mentioned it in his book, Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. And he was talking about those people. There are people who have actually they're all in on calorie restriction, and they're usually thin and frail and wearing sweaters in the summer. And so it does catch up to you in some way.
Yeah. I think Ben Greenfield jokes about that. Like, if you want to be libido-less and have no muscle and be miserable and cranky, then go for it. Yeah.
But at least you get to do it for an extra 30%.
30, that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. Well, so 90% in rats. I mean, how does that translate to humans? I mean,
if the average human lives 90% longer, the average human will live to about 152. Now, because of our wiring, everyone your brain immediately goes, the oldest person, 152. No. Bell curve around 152, right? That's the average person. And then, people will be into the 200s easily if this pans out. And, are we going to get a longevity study done on humans? We're not, because that's 152. In fact, we're in the process of doing the research necessary to recreate the original study, right? So the way the scientific process is supposed to work is you have a theory. Ironically, the theory in this case was that it was toxic. Then you do your experiment, you publish your results, and then some other lab is supposed to recreate them. We recently published with the original researcher out of Paris, Dr. Fathi Musa. He posted something, said, listen, it's been 12 years since the original study came out. There's still people who are haven't convinced themselves that this is safe or not. We need to do these fundamental tests that regulatory agencies would recognize. And I reached out to him and was like, we've done those tests. Like we've actually done those. Do you want to publish a paper? And so I think it's like we're at 2 months now. 2 months ago, we published with Dr. Fathi Musa, and we have our second paper with him going in. Like we're a supplement company that's doing the hard work that, frankly, you don't hear supplement companies doing often. There's some good ones out there, right? There's certainly, we bump into, in this biohacking space, we bump into some supplement companies are like, yeah, they're doing things right. But we also bump into some that aren't, and the ones that even aren't in the biohacking space, maybe it just gets a little, we'll call the industry challenged. I think that's the good way to put it. But so one of my roles was to figure out, okay, is this 90% longevity? Is this, is this amazing? It is. And then what are the mechanisms, right? And kind of at first pass, I'm like, well, the medical community thinks about, often, not always, thinks about aging as an oxidation and an inflammation process, right? So we have the phrase inflammaging, right. So that's clear. We check both of those boxes from an antioxidant perspective. You mentioned 100, there's an ad hoc study out on the web, 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. There's peer-reviewed published research that shows it 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. And I'm going to come back with the kind of newest theory regarding it, and it is related to being an antioxidant. But the next kind of modality that that medicine often thinks of aging is inflammation. Here we have to be really careful. The FDA equates chronic inflammation to disease, right? Those are the classic diseases of aging. That's arthritis, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's. These are chronic diseases of aging. So if we talk about of inflammation and aging, if we talk about inflammation, then we're making claims about that. So we're not going to do that. What the FDA does allow us to say is we address inflammation induced by exercise, right? So we've all had a tough workout. We've all just walked longer than normal and woken up the next day and felt inflammation. We absolutely address that type of inflammation. We just need to do more research to be able to speak about other types of inflammation. And maybe here's a good point to kind of segue. In the original study, by the way, my director of research, he's a former practicing gynecologist, said at one point, this paper could have been 5 separate papers because there's so much fascinating information in it. One of the other aspects, so one, the rats live 90% longer, longest result on mammals. The other is that none of them died with any tumors. So a typical Wistar rat will live out to 32 months and will have a known amount of tumor mass. So the longer they live, the more tumor mass they have in their body. Even though the MyVitalC rats lived out to 62 months, none of them had any tumors in their body. Now, this is often where people are like, oh, cure for cancer. And my response is no, absolutely no. There is a huge difference between dealing with a cancer that has metastasized and then being potentially a cancer preventative. And we know things as simple as a good diet, good exercise, good sleep can be cancer preventatives. We just need to do more research on that front. But that's still tied to I tell that story because it ties back into inflammation. And we can wrap up inflammation with our product fits perfectly with an anti-inflammatory diet, right? Like that's the diet associated with the blue zone people, people who have reduced incidences of stroke, reduced incidences of heart attacks, and also tend to live longer. And so that was kind of our first theory as it relates to like what was the mechanism of action for the ESS60 molecule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you say it pairs with, right? Because it's not just one thing is going to heal you or support healing. We got to do all the things.
Yeah. No, that just becomes more, the more people I interview, right? So I interviewed 55 experts and I came out of that going, okay, so it really is diet, exercise, sleep,
the
connection
basics,
with people,
but all the basics,
mindset.
Yeah. Mindset. So, something I noticed that was really interesting when I was at your booth at Biohackers World. So for anyone watching on YouTube, where's my head? Do you see it?
Right in front of your face.
Lower. I hate this camera.
Lower.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Now this says party recovery, but you had other boxes that said for sleep, for energy, brain, like different things. And so someone might say, wait, it does all of it, but it sounds like it's really because the root of it is what it's doing with inflammation, correct?
Well, what I would say is, and one, by the way, we didn't understand party recovery, just a fascinating journey around the FDA. We can't say hangover recovery. And you're like, my initial thought was like, why can't I say hangover recovery? Like, it's something I did to myself, and then I'm just trying to undo it or whatever. And then I'm going to say two words, and you're like, oh yeah, that is the purview of the FDA. Alcohol poisoning. Like, that's what a hangover is. And as soon as you get into poisoning, then that's an FDA thing. And so we can't talk about that. But we can talk about, in general, party recovery.
Okay.
And that kind of came out of just, actually, there was an employee we had at the time, went to another employee's wedding and came back and said, like, I went to this wedding and I drank a number, whatever the number was, and I felt a lot better in the morning than I should have. And then we just started paying attention and looking around, and yeah, that seems to be consistent. There are other boxes. Our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Now, what is it that you can take in the morning and positively impact your sleep? I'm not aware of many things. Certainly, if you get exercise in the morning, that'll positively impact your sleep. If you get exposure to the sun, right, get your circadian rhythm in line with the rising and falling of the sun. This is like back to all the things. Then that can certainly positively impact your sleep. But it really is, and I like to draw contrast to, have you read Dr. Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, amazing book. I call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books, except it doesn't scare you out of your dreams. It scares you into sleep, right? Because it's all the terrifying things that happen to you if you don't get sleep. And he talks about that. He talks about the $2 billion sleep aid industry in his book, and points out that these prescription medications that you take right before you go to sleep, what they actually do is there's a, you guys are probably aware, but there's a chemical called adenosine. It builds up throughout the day that causes you to desire sleep. These quote unquote sleep aids will relax the pressure, the chemical pressure of adenosine, right? So you wake up in the morning without the desire for sleep, which if you just experience 10 days and you're waking up and you're still sleepy, right? And then you get this experience, it's going to feel like you got a great night's sleep. But Dr. Matthew Walker points out they don't get the REM sleep and they don't get the in-REM sleep that they need. And so I desperately wish that I'd gotten my dad off of those before he passed, because I think that, I mean, it wasn't, I'm not saying how much that would have changed his trajectory, but it certainly was doing no good. And I just mentioned that because the contrast is knock you unconscious right before you go to sleep, and ours take in the morning and have a positive impact. And then the next theory that I can share will probably explain like why that might be possible. I don't know if you have different questions.
Well, just a question. Is there harm in taking it too late in the day? Do people ever report like, oh, I took it at 6 and then I couldn't fall asleep?
So we have had a small, and I'm going to say like 5% of customers, if they take it later in the day, they report that it can keep them up.
Okay.
I think what's happening is this. We've all gone to sleep and our brain's just wired, right? And you're like, I don't even know if I should bother laying down because like my brain's just going. People report that, right? Focus and energy. People report that. So your brain's firing. And that's true of me most of the time that I'm going to sleep. But as soon as my head hits the pillow, I'm asleep, right? So it may be a process of it activates your mind, but then you can, with a moderate amount of control of that, you can go to sleep because it just doesn't impact me. But I'm also a guy who will drink a cup of coffee with dessert because I like coffee with dessert, and then I go to sleep. Now I know it's, or a ring tells me it's not, my sleep is being detrimentally impacted, but it doesn't stop, it doesn't extend the amount of time it takes me to fall asleep. We've had people even say a typical serving is 5 mils or 1 teaspoon. We've had people say if they take the full 5 mils or the full 1 teaspoon in the morning, that it can negatively, like they just get too much energy, so they've had to cut back. Again, I think that's more related to their minds racing. Their mind is really active, but if they tried to go to sleep, they actually would.
Got it. And very
Well, that's a
bio-individual.
Yeah.
tricky, complicated
Yeah.
subject. Why
Yeah.
are you not sleeping? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I-
Right. Because you're ruminating. What? Yeah. What? Did you have good sleep hygiene practices? Like, there's all sorts of things that can go
There's a
wrong there.
million boxes we
So
gotta
much.
check off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of ruminating about the antioxidant benefits. I'm curious, how does this act as an antioxidant in a positive way? Because we all know that antioxidants are good. We know oxidative stress is a root of aging and chronic disease, but some people are overdoing their antioxidants. My understanding is that Carbon60, you can't overdo it. Can you explain how it's not disrupting that natural mechanism?
Yeah. I think what I'll dive into is our theory. I do want to share, because this is unbelievably exciting to me. At the biohacking conference, you may know of Chris Gethin or heard of Chris Gethin. He's a bodybuilder, right? He stopped by my booth and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to talk about you tomorrow in my talk." And I just thought like he's going to talk about antioxidants in general, right, or whatever. So I go to the talk. I almost didn't make it to the talk. So I'm sitting in the back, actually next to his business partner, Jag. And up comes the slide, and they're like, "There's MyVitalC on his slide," and I'm like, "Oh my God, he's actually going to talk about us." Cool. and we got like a good 2 minutes because he looks at MyVitalC as an antioxidant in the molecule ESS60 as an antioxidant, but one that doesn't dampen the hormetic response, right? Because that's one of the concerns. Like these people who are taking too many of potentially the wrong kinds of antioxidants end up dampening. And again, the hormetic responses. The classic one is I lift weights, my muscles get bigger. That's the hormetic response to lifting weights. That he speaks about it in those terms. I think what really is, we literally have testimonials from head to toe. So by the way, let me interject here. The FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. That is an FDA legal requirement, and I actually believe in it. I think it's the right strategy. I often say, I'm going to share anecdotes, just assume they won't happen for you. Dig into the research, and if this makes sense for you, then okay, I understand. And if it doesn't make sense for you, I also understand. I'm a scientist. There's two sides of the coin. So we have what's called the boss theory, right? Well, so we have testimonials head to toe, literally head to toe. I shared, hair growing in, original color. One of the best toe example, we have multiple. My wife broke her toe, healed really fast, but this is our best one. I have an influencer who, when he was 5 years old, a crab bit his big toe and split the toenail. It was split until he turned 65 after taking our product. So after he started taking our product, finally his toenail healed.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Cool.
And we have a lot of hair, skin, nail improvements faster, all that good stuff. So we have these testimonials from head to toe, right? So I kind of use the inflammation and antioxidant to explain the potential why the rats potentially live longer, or they did live longer, and why that might impact us. But how do you explain whole system impacts, right? And we ended up on what we call the BOSS theory, buffering oxidative stress system. And this goes back into antioxidant. So we know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. And then you guys are biohackers, you're like, oh, that's a good thing, potentially. We also know from back when it was discovered, back in the 90s, that it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of this cage, right? You start thinking reactive oxygen species, negatively charged particles, this holding. So this buffering oxidative stress system, I have this kind of fun analogy. Well, let's talk just briefly about the mitochondria, the powerhouse of every cell. Every cell in your body has between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in it. I interviewed a Dr. Patel, and one of my questions to him was like, do we really know that much about mitochondria? Because I found the number between 50 and 5,000, but then you go into looking at nerve cells and brain cells, and there's 2 million in those, right? That doesn't fit in the 50 to 5,000, like, I don't, right? And then I found an article that said, the rods in your eyes, right, that allow you to see have significantly more. And then I couldn't even find the number, right? So like even understanding mitochondria is brand new and exciting. But So you got between 50 and 5,000. They're the organelle that's in every cell that generates energy, right? And the energy is in the form of ATP. By the way, the A in ATP is adenosine, which is the thing that builds up and causes you to sleep. So it's causes you to want to sleep. So there's a whole circle here. Just like any energy source that we're familiar with. A car going down the road, you've got exhaust. There's a negative byproduct. A power plant has a smokestack. You've got a negative byproduct. In the mitochondria, the negative byproduct is reactive oxygen species. And these are the things that we typically think we're taking, vitamin C for, right? These antioxidants for. Internal to the mitochondria, you have two antioxidants that typically handle these reactive oxygen species, and that's glutathione and melatonin. Melatonin, the sleep hormone. Again, we have this kind of whole circle of responsibility. I don't know. There's a circle of some kind. And we also know, right, that different parts of our body can get depleted of different components. And when the mitochondria is depleted of glutathione and melatonin, that's when these reactive oxygen species can run around and like describe them like bumper cars running into things and doing damage, rusting the components that they run into. So the theory is that the ESS60 molecule can hold on to those. So here's the analogy. It's Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is over. We're on Bourbon Street, and you got these drunk reactive oxygen species running around and tearing up cars and spray painting stuff. And you've got the police, the glutathione and melatonin, coming in and handcuffing them to these reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But when the police get overwhelmed, what do? They take those reactive oxygen species and they throw them in the paddy wagon, right? So that's this ESS60 molecule that can hold up to 6 of these negatively charged particles. So now they can't do damage, right? They're still on Bourbon Street, but they can't do damage. And then when that mitochondria is able to replenish the glutathione or the melatonin, then they can come in, handcuff them, and get them off of Bourbon Street. So that's a buffering oxidative stress system, which is very different than any sort of mechanism. And if you can improve or reduce the negative impact of overwhelmed mitochondria, then you will get head-to-toe benefits.
Yeah.
But we can't take too much of it?
I believe people ask this regularly, and I believe our understanding of the toxicity level is probably the same as olive oil, the oil that we dissolve the molecule in, and the toxicity of olive oil involves drowning. Right, like you, at some point you won't get it down your you won't get it down your throat. I'm full, and so I can't.
Oh gosh,
which means it's safer than water, right? Because you can consume too much water too quickly, and hyperhidrosis, and your cells will explode, which is terrifying. But that's where.
So why olive oil? Why did you choose that?
So we didn't choose in a great many of the examples of this path. I am not the smart person behind these things. I'm just the person who's like, well, that worked, so we should continue to do that. In that original study, right, it was out of the University of Paris. I kind of say like, well, they had it on the shelf. They had a high quality Tunisian olive oil, which is the olive oil we use, or at least the same orchard, a high quality Tunisian olive oil, and that is known to dissolve this molecule. By the way, two very interesting facts. You can't get much of the ESS60 molecule to dissolve in it. It actually isn't readily soluble. If you've ever made a simple syrup for drinks, or hummingbird food for hummingbirds, you can get a 1-to-1 ratio. You can't with this. You can barely get any. And on a small scale, you actually have to mix it for 2 weeks. One of the things I mentioned to you that we tested 22 of the products on the market, and they are woefully low in concentration. I believe one of the things that's happening is when you go from this smaller volume to like 100-liter vats, we noticed, because we have an HPLC, because we've been working with this molecule since 1991, that the concentration wasn't going up as fast. There's something about the fluid dynamics that doesn't allow it to dissolve at these larger volumes. So now we actually have to mix it for 3 weeks. By the way, if you were getting into the supplement market and understood that you had to mix it for 3 weeks, you might not choose this product because like it's a pain in the butt to make. It takes about 3 weeks to get it. So I think the answer to why olive oil is that's what they had at the University of Paris. Now, we
Okay.
sell 3 different oils, right? With the ESS60 molecule in 3 different oils: olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. And if anybody ever asks, like, which one should we try? It's the olive oil for 2 reasons. So the first is we're a science-based organization, and all the science is on the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. And then the second reason is you can actually get more of the ESS60 molecule to dissolve in olive oil. You get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, about 0.6 in avocado oil, and then about 0.3 in MCT oil. And MCT oil, so my MCT oil is kind of cool because you're probably familiar with it. It's a clear liquid. You pour this black powder into this clear liquid, and after it mixes, it turns a beautiful purple. I probably should have something here. It's a beautiful purple color, right? And that's just how the physics works from the way the light refracts through it. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and my routine is I put some MCT. I do almost a bulletproof coffee, right? I skip the ghee, a lot of calories there. I do the MCT. While that's mixing, I take a teaspoon and a half of our olive oil, and now it's absolutely part of my routine every day.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, so I'm curious, since you have all of these formulations, why would someone pick the coconut oil? Is it at that point just someone's preference on taste?
Yeah, we were actually working with a vendor. They were called Beta, I think that was the name of it. Kind of a cool company, Apple store layout. And one of their employees, like, so I think I sent you guys some. I'm readily send product to people who are interested and are in a position to potentially sell it, right? Just because, like, if you have it and you experience it, you're just more excited about the whole prospect, right? And one of their employees was allergic to olive oil and MCT. And I didn't even know you could be allergic to MCT oil. Like, it's such a simple component. So he needed the avocado. Yeah, it's flavor, like it's taste. And then MCT to put it into your coffee. I'm actually trying to put together something, associated with bulletproof coffee with our MCT, because I mean, MCT is a fantastic oil, right? To create ketones, and energy source that we can use right away. And then you throw the ESS60 molecule in it, and not only is it a beautiful purple color, but you've got the benefits of the ESS60 molecule.
Yeah, can you make me a coffee creamer that has ESS60 and MCT oil and tastes good, and I can blend it up? That would be great.
Well, MCT, what do you think? When I take MCT straight, and even ours, like the ESS60 molecule doesn't affect the flavor. For me, it's like a buttery. It has like a buttery flavor to it. Is that not satisfying? No.
It's just oily to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do the butter coffee, but then I realized I don't do well with high saturated fat, so I had to cut the butter out. So now I'm on the hunt for a new coffee creamer, because I found another one that was like a keto coffee creamer with monk fruit, and sneaky devils, at some point they switched their monk fruit out for sucralose.
Yeah.
I was like, weird. Whole Foods stopped selling my favorite creamer. Didn't think to check the label. So I kept buying it from Sprouts. And then like a month or two ago, I'm like, let me just read the label again. I'm like, they have sucralose in it. That's probably why Whole Foods stopped selling it. Anyways, tangent about my coffee creamer debate.
I've seen that with so many products where it's like, it looks the same on the outside. You check the label, it's not the same on the ingredient label.
Yeah.
Bummer.
That is, a challenge with the supplement market. You always have to be looking, I don't know, CYA, right? Let the caveat emptor, let the buyer beware.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson I've tried to teach. Like, as an example, a lot of people will go to Amazon and then you're like, oh, there's 5-star reviews on whatever, a C60 product. And like, yeah, what is a 5-star review on Amazon? Like, think about this. A 5-star review for, let's say, something more standard, vitamin C, right? We know that they didn't crush up the vitamin C and stick it into an HPLC and check if it was ascorbic acid, right? So we know that. They probably didn't weigh the individual tablets, right? So we don't know if they're 1 gram, half a gram, whatever the amount is. They probably didn't even count the tablets, right? So what does a 5-star review of vitamin C or supplements mean?
Yeah.
It typically just means Amazon harassed them and they wrote a review before they died. Like that, like that's
Well,
what it is.
I mean, I've gotten not I don't buy my supplements from Amazon, but like other products, and in the box it'll say, leave us a 5-star review and we'll send you a $25 gift card or whatever. And I'm like, if they're doing that to everyone, no wonder they have all these 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
Buying
You
them.
really have
Yeah.
to be aware. And you know, again, it's one of the reasons we kind of parsed out ESS60 is so that when I'm kind of exposing somebody to a new product, that they get to choose it safe. We have our products on Amazon and we have a good number of reviews, but I would implore you, do not use Amazon reviews they're great for phones, right? Hey, my phone worked and I was able to take calls. Like that's a legitimate review. But of a supplement, you just don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, don't go there.
So question about, we have a couple of questions we got to squeeze in here. So the differentiation between the sleep product, energy, party recovery, is it all the same? It's just that we're kind of focusing or choosing a separate timing. Tell us what we need to know.
Yeah. So it took me a long time because I knew, right, that if you have a package, if I just tell you, hey, here's this thing and it gives you focus and energy during the day and better sleep at night, you're just already shutting down, right? One, it's a supplement, right? So you've already kind of entered the realm of this challenged industry. And then you're saying this is a supplement that does things that are kind of impossible. Like these things don't happen. You don't get focus and energy and better sleep like that, right? So I knew really early on that we were going to need to parse out potentially come up with different formulations. And I hesitated because I wanted to have a different formulation, right? I wanted to throw. We did some stuff with niacin, which is interesting. I actually had a marketing company once tell me, you might want to throw some laxatives in your product because when people take your product, they don't experience anything. And if there's a laxative in there, at least they'll experience something. It's like, I appreciate your marketing prowess, but we're not doing that.
Oh my
right?
God.
And niacin had
Please
that
don't do
effect,
that.
right? You have a niacin flush. But then finally, I was like, what is the challenge that you're going to bump into if you have the same product in different boxes? And the potential challenges that you go on, Lauren, you go on and you buy 3 of them. And then you get them at home and you're like, wait a minute, these are the same things. And then you're pissed off, right? And that is a concern. But our customer service department, they have like 850 5-star reviews. They're just going to refund you or send it back or keep it or whatever and work to make you happy. And it's really a small percentage. Like, you know, a lot of companies, e-com companies cross-sell. I would never cross-sell the same product with a different label to you, right? Like that would be really stupid. And so we ended up coming up with these, and it changes the dynamics of the conversation that we're able to have, right? So when I sit down, and you probably went through this, Renee, maybe you did, where I'm like, hey, which one of these resonates with you, right? Is it the focus and energy? Is the better sleep? Is it the exercise recovery? Is it the party recovery? And then you can start to zone in and we can start to have a conversation about that. And then I can tell you the history of the molecule and that it actually impacts the mitochondria. And when you understand that it positively impacts the mitochondria, then, okay, yeah, it does make sense that it would give you focus and energy. 2 million mitochondria in each of your brain cells. And also your nerve cells, it does make sense that it would help you sleep because of the potential prospect of impacting, well, both the mitochondria, and you think about, you know, the impact with melatonin, but also the potential impact on inflammation, right? So then it buys enough time to have a better conversation. Right, because the first conversation is like, this does all this, and you know, if I were at a booth, you're like, yeah, next booth.
Totally. Yeah. That makes sense to me. We have to go upstream and understand we're affecting basic foundational things, but you're kind of leading into the placebo effect, because if I accidentally take the one for energy before sleep, then I'm going to go, oh man, I did that wrong. Now my sleep was terrible, when, you know, like there's a nocebo effect, but we also could have a placebo positive experience because we're like, this is going to help my focus and energy if I take it in the morning.
Yeah, I've had conversations with people who's like, are you using the placebo effect, like with your packaging and everything? I'm like, well, what would be the opposite of using the placebo effect? Should my packaging say will not help you with sleep, will not help you with focus and energy, will not help you recover. Like, is that fair even? So
I think it's such a positive.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the placebo effect is very helpful to our health and healing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really important. Now, one of the things, so I'll share a testimonial. One of our largest distributors here in Houston, her name is Gwen. She originally bought the product for her dog. She had no intention of actually taking the product, right?
I wanted to ask you about this, about pets. Yeah.
And so her dog, she noticed such a profound difference in her dog that she decided to start taking it. And now first, just to pause, there is no placebo effect with dogs. Right? Like, ironically, they're not smart enough to know that they got the dropper full, and so they should be peppier today, right? They just act how they feel. And
they just know it kind of tastes like bacon.
Yeah. The dog flavor tastes like bacon. The cat tastes like salmon. We actually do get some guys. Can I have the bacon flavor? Yes, you can. It's just the bacon essence. But interestingly, to kind of round out Gwen's testimonial, because I think it's telling, because some people ask, like, how quickly might I notice effects? Gwen is an example where she said, if you had asked me, this is on a video that I did with her, if you had asked me at the 3-month mark, have I noticed anything? My initial response would have been no. But then I kind of stopped and took stock of my life. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm able to work later into the evening. Like, she's just self-employed. I'm waking up earlier, and I was never really a morning person. And then arguably the worst testimonial about a supplement you will ever hear, it's not in our literature. I cleaned my garage. Now, not a great testimonial. Like, you want to clean your garage?
Yeah.
You just need to take MyVitalC. But it also does mean something.
I don't know. Like, I could use that right now. My garage is a disaster.
It could be some entertaining commercials. They're like, shot of MyVitalC, and then garage.
Get shit done. Yeah.
But it does mean something, right? Because whether it's emotion, by the way, we do have kind of emotional testimonials, like from having a positive impact on people's emotions, or well-being, or whatever we want to call it. Like, what is it that's holding you back from cleaning the garage? Like, one of them is just energy, because it's maybe a big project to tackle. And the other might be the emotions. Like, maybe there's some exes stuff out there or whatever, and you're like, I just don't want to deal with that. And so I think it actually does mean something, and does answer the other end of, like, how quickly might people notice. I've got one video testimonial of a lady out of the UK, and she did her video at the end of the day, and she goes, I took it in the morning, and I didn't even finish my coffee today. Right? And if you're a coffee aficionado, like, if you notice you didn't finish your coffee and you mention it in a video, like, that's
huge.
That's huge.
Impact. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
I want to share how I discovered this for pets. I'm so glad that you have the pet products. So about 4 years ago, my older cat was diagnosed with lymphoma. She had like a 5 centimeter tumor on her liver. And the traditional vet was like, we can do chemo, which is like crazy, but she was like, it'll keep her alive for maybe 6 more months. But during the process, she'll probably be throwing up a lot. She'll lose weight. Her fur will fall off. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like a good answer. So I went down the rabbit hole of like everything alternative and holistic, and Carbon60 came up so much for pets, just in general, but also with cancer. And so I started giving it to my cat. Unfortunately, I think it was just the cancer had progressed too far. But now I'm trying to get my other 2 cats that are healthy and young to take it regularly so that they don't develop health issues later on. So
yeah. And we have a number of testimonials. There's one of the guys that I work with, he had gone to a couple of vets with his cat. They were like, well, they got to the point where, like, we should do this test. And my friend Matt was like, so if it's positive, what do we do? Oh, no, your cat's going to die. And if it's negative, well, we don't know what's wrong with your cat, so your cat's probably going to die. It's like, why don't we skip that test? And called my office and started taking our ESS60 product. And that cat, I mean, that was probably 4 years ago. That cat is still around. And he has another story of another cat. I forget whose that is, but so we definitely have that regularly. And then recently we've had some influencers share, I feel like you gave me a full additional year with my dog. Right. And that means something, having to carry the dog downstairs, and now it's bounding up, to go to the bathroom. Now it's bounding up the stairs after it's done. Those are pretty profound. I will share, this is just kind of fun. We sell a lot more dog product than cat product. Apparently cat owners are less interested in their cats.
After 20 years, they're done.
As a cat owner, I will say it's hard to get cats to consume it.
Yeah.
I keep trying to sneak it in, and like, they are so smart. And I don't know, fun fact, cats actually have a better sense of smell than dogs. The only reason cats are not, drug patrol at the airport is because they're kind of a-holes. They're like, we don't really want to help you. Dogs are like, sure, we'll help you out. But cats actually have a better sense of smell. So I have put it in my cat's food bowl, and sometimes they will eat around the drop.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Versus like dogs are like, yeah, whatever. It's bacon. Give it to me. So it takes me a long time to get through Carbon60 or CBD with my cats, because they're so picky.
I'm like that with CBD with my dog, Rudy. He's a little iffy about the CBD. Same thing. He'll kind of eat around it depending on the brand.
Well, he gets the munchies.
But with MyVitalC, he's been taking it for about, what'd you say? He's a monkey?
He gets the munchies after you.
Oh, the munchies. That dog always has the munchies. He's a monster. But he's been taking MyVitalC regularly for about a month. And it's interesting. My husband and I just moved, and in our new home townhouse, we have a lot of stairs. And I was really actually concerned to move here because our dog is 14. And I'm like, he's slowing down. We're so nervous about all these stairs in our house. He has been doing the stairs flawlessly. And with his breed, they call him like lumpy bumpy. He gets a lot of bumps and knots. I actually feel like he's had less knots and bumps, and his energy is great. And he's like doing the stair. And it's really hard for me to say causative,
right?
But all the fears that I had about this new house have completely dissolved. That's amazing. And he loves the bacon. He'll eat it. He eats it. Yeah. Unlike the CBD. We have
picture, videos of like seemingly ravenous dogs, and they'll put the food down. The dog's like, where's my MyVitalC? And then they'll like put the squirt, and then they're like, then the food's gone in like 10 seconds. Like,
maybe I should get the bacon one, because my cats love bacon.
I smell it. It smells pretty good.
Did you get the salmon one?
I think it's salmon.
Okay.
Yeah.
The cat one is salmon. I don't know if you got that one or which one you got. I'm happy to send more. Like it's
that. Yeah. I think it's the salmon one. Yeah. But they prefer bacon.
Oh, yeah.
Who doesn't?
Actually, like I left a pan of bacon sitting on the stove one time just to let it cool, and went upstairs for a minute. I came back down. My cat had eaten an entire strip of bacon.
Wow.
And I called the vet. I said, is he going to be okay? She was like, he might get a little sick, but he's probably really happy right now.
Happiness over gut issues.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I actually like salmon wrapped in bacon, like, so we could throw the two together.
Sounds good. All of it. Yeah.
I would eat that.
Yeah. Go to Megas. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, this is fascinating. Yeah. I'm going to keep giving Rudy the Vital C, and I need to take mine more regularly to see. I love it. I feel good. And I take it if I'm going to have a drink, and been like, a little more off the hook.
I'm going to take mine right now.
Do you feel like it has a positive impact? I can share.
I think
I haven't had a hangover in like 4 years. And I've been to marketing conferences. Yeah, like biohacking conferences are interesting because like almost nobody's interested in the party recovery. You go to a marketing conference, like they're like, oh, I need that now. Like I literally need the party recovery right now.
Yeah.
And so one marketing event, my wife and I were checking in at the hotel, and I look at her like with this uncomfortable look. I was like, we're gonna be here in Vegas for 6 days. I don't know if this is a good plan. Like, is this a good plan? Right. Cause you're working all day, and then a marketing conference, there's like 3 different parties that are open bar, and like, it's, and then we like try and catch some of actual Vegas. And so there's no sleep. Yeah. We survived.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 60
Yeah.
is a long, usually 3 days is the recommended time because it's a
Yep.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
I'm gonna do
I
my
feel like
shot.
it definitely doesn't erase bad behavior, but if you are like kind of moderate and doing the right things, it definitely, I've noticed it takes the edge off for sure.
Yeah, the way I kind of describe it is, yeah, like often the biggest challenge with alcohol is the interruption of sleep, right?
Yeah.
And we do have
Ugh,
some
Heart's
improvement in
like beating out
sleep.
of my chest. Yeah.
And then I'm tired, right? But in situations where I probably would have had a headache, probably would have had an upset stomach, I'm just tired. Like I don't, if I have to do something, I can. I don't want to, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where I land typically.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. This has been so fascinating. I feel like I have a good understanding of Carbon60 now, what it does. That
Same.
helps a lot. Can you share
Yeah.
with our audience where they can find more of you and where they can find ESS60?
So I think I made a link for your audience, and if I didn't, I'm going to make one up right now. So they should go to and you tell me, what should it be? myvitalc.com/biohacking babes.
Biohacker babes.
Biohacker babes.
Yes, that would be great.
Excellent. I think I already made it, and I didn't do my because we had to reschedule, and thank you for that. But yeah, if they go to myvitalc.com/biohacker babes, there's also a coupon code that'll give you $15 off of the first order. That code is on that page. So you need to go to that page, myvitalc.com/biohacker babes. When you land there, I'm going to share this. You can find our products, you can find our, or buy one of them. There's a 20% discount for going on subscription. Even if you just want to try it, take advantage of that discount. A lot of people don't cancel their subscription. Like I think I mentioned earlier, our customer service department has 850 5-star reviews. They are not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. Just take advantage of that discount.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
love subscriptions.
Thank you so
Makes
much.
it easy.
And if people could do me a small favor, I'm trying to grow my Instagram account. If they just go to Instagram.com/MyVitalC or search for MyVitalC, C as in carbon, on Instagram, I would love more follows. This will end up cutting this into, if I get access, we'll cut it into shorts, and there's just all sorts of great content out there. And I'm constantly interviewing amazing people and getting shorts out there. So there's great stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes so it's easy for everyone to go follow. Thanks, Chris. One final question for you. Can you give our audience one piece of advice, something they should start doing today to optimize their health?
So I'm in the middle of putting together, kind of rolling off of the longevity summit that I did, interviewing 55 experts, and I'm putting together like a 6-week course, like a starter course. And I actually cheated, and the first week doesn't even count. And the first week is on mindset, right? Get your mindset right. So just to share from that summit, I asked everybody for 2 to 3 mindsets, protocols, habits, whatever, for longevity that they would share. And then we collated all the data. And I think it was like 25% mentioned mindset, we'll say 45, it's right in that range, and mentioned nutrition, 45 mentioned exercise, and then it was a smaller number mentioned sleep. And my first thought was, like, we know how important sleep is, especially if you read, Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep. And so I thought, these experts got it wrong. And then a couple of days later, I was just processing, and I was like, wait a minute, if you need to make nutritional changes and you don't have the mindset, or you need to make exercise and movement changes and you don't have the mindset, if you need to make changes to your sleep and your sleep hygiene and you don't have the mindset, so mindset is the most important thing. All of us, I think, have done a good job through my life, but have at various points in our lives spoken extremely negatively about ourselves too, in our own mind. You've got to work on that, and you've got to work on mindset. I think in that course, we're going to be talking about extremely small amounts of journaling, right? Like for me, often you say, like, you should be journaling, and you should, and I should, and I don't. But doing really small things, just write 2 sentences. Don't write a page. Don't like brain dump at the end of the day. Just have some positive affirmations of what you've done and then what you're trying to accomplish. I think that is paramount for any change that you're trying to make. And there's a reason where you are. And the thing that typically, I like this phrase, the thing that's holding you back from where you want to be is not what you don't know. It's what you know and you're not doing. And the reason you're not doing it is because your mindset's not right.
Ooh,
I agree.
that's good.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. And not to step on your advice, I want to add to it because it resonates so much. I think, yeah, the journaling a little bit. And I always tell clients, like, don't worry what your handwriting looks like, because I feel like that's a barrier to journaling. Like, just chicken scratch it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No one else is reading it. Yeah.
And even if you can't read it, it's the process of whatever the physical movement of writing that's really important. Whatever you do, don't take your journaling on your cell phone, because your cell phone shouldn't be next to you in bed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pen and paper. I got my pen and paper.
I love that. Thank you so much for that
Great advice.
And thank you for everything you shared with us today. This is so
Thank
awesome.
you guys for having me. This was a blast. We'll bump into each other at events and maybe reconnect.
Yes,
definitely. Yes.
Awesome.
All right. And thanks to everyone that tuned in today. We will see you next time.